All right, so today's presentation is called How to Earn 25% More Revenue from Your Short-Term Rental Portfolio. Quick show of hands, who does any sort of revenue management today? Dynamic pricing today. Anyone use dynamic pricing software today? Okay. So hello, everyone. First of all, nice to meet you. I'm Andrew. I'm the CEO and founder of a company called Wheelhouse. My goals today are really to uncover a few new insights and some free tools to help you do revenue management better. The goal of these tools obviously is not to spend time, but to save time and also to make more money, right? That's why we do what we do. If you like what you see today and you want to sign up, we do have a discount available for the STR Summit, 50% off your first month with Wheelhouse. Put in this code when you sign up. We'll give you 50% off. If it doesn't work for some reason, email us. We're super easy to reach. So now for a little backstory. Before talking about revenue management, I thought it might be good to share who are we and what do we actually do? So I've actually been working in the short-term rental space / hospitality space for a very long time. And this image that you see here is the first property I had on Airbnb. Your review score is probably a little higher than mine, right? I had a 4.65, but I rented out this room on Airbnb to pay for my first business. Before I was doing kind of Airbnb stuff, I actually started a couple other businesses. It was really early in the game. And I was really lucky to host a bunch of amazing guests, but this is also one of my favorite guests ever. So this is actually Brian Chesky, CEO of Airbnb, who, yes, truly came to stay with me and was kind enough to say I was a superb host. I do not know if that was the case, but we did have an amazing breakfast. We had national news came over to the house and filmed the whole thing. And they were kind of looking at me like, what are you doing? Like, what do you mean you're renting out your home in an urban area to these renters? What is a lot of fun. Since then, I've gone on to build a number of different businesses in the short-term rental space. So I've worked as both an operator and as a technologist. From an operations side, kind of the highlight of operations for me was building a company called Lyric. We developed 700 different listings in 25 buildings across the US. We were in about 14 or 15 US markets. We had an average review score, even at that scale, of higher than my own individual score when I was a host, of almost 4.9%. We did become the #1 rated hotel in New York City out of 540 properties. And we ran these large scale up to 130 unit places. They were designed more for corporate travelers. Urban corporate travel in America during COVID, not a good place to be. We actually moved out of every single building we're in, but gained a whole heck of a lot of operating experience in doing it. I've also built a lot of software in this space. So that is actually my background. Product and technology is kind of the language I speak best. First, we were a team called, early startup called Movity. We were acquired by Trulia. We were using real estate data to inform home purchasing decisions. I then founded Beyond Pricing, another revenue management tool in our space, and then founded Wheelhouse as well to do a deeper dive into data science and to do an investment layer on top of it. So kind of a broader approach to how you could use pricing and financial intelligence to build a really interesting short-term rental business. Today, Wheelhouse does a pretty darn good job of helping folks out. Average listing increases revenue by about 22%. Our top users earn 100% more revenue. And I know that sounds like ludicrous. So I'll show you some quotes in a second. We have customers in many countries, about to be worldwide, in fact, and a really high customer support score of 99%. And what we actually are, and Ryan, if you could just let me know, is this slide moving for you at all? Is there any slight animation on this slide? Yeah, it is. Okay, good. We're seeing the right screen. There's gonna be a lot more animation coming. I know we're doing a little table setting right now. I appreciate your patience. Anyway, Wheelhouse today, we are revenue management / dynamic pricing, market intelligence, and competitive sets, also known as benchmarking. Our product is known for being easy to set up, customize, and automate. And we do everything we build is on top of this pricing engine here, which just filled itself in. But we have a living pricing engine. We're going to talk about dynamic pricing today. It is a funny subject, but basically think of it as a way to turn data around your home and your market and your nearby similar properties into insights about how you can price and therefore maximize revenue. It is a living model. We ingest about 10 billion data points a day from a huge number of data partners. And this is kind of the pride and joy of the organization. I mentioned this already. We're pretty broadly distributed. We do add new markets every single month right now, but in about 6 to 8 weeks, we will be available worldwide. Literally every market, anywhere where VRBO, Airbnb, or other property is, will be able to price you. And a few customer quotes, just because this person actually said, yes, Wheelhouse doubled my income. It's true. It's not just a claim. And we do have really cool customer service. We put a huge investment into this service. This person actually said it's the best customer service they've ever had in a software. And then since those quotes were from Q4, I just pulled some this morning. All these are the last 3 quotes in the door. Oh, someone could go on mute there. But yeah, this is another person where we doubled their income. This is just live public posts. You can see it on Trustpilot. People writing about us every day in terms of their experience. So we do kind of pride ourselves on really good customer interactions. Cool. Now we're through all that. That's us. And now we get to what we want to share today, which is really, we want to try to cover 3 topics. The first one is mastering your market, right? We know one of the truisms about revenue management is that I can always teach kind of broad swath revenue management best practices. The reality is revenue management is unique to you. It's unique to your listings. It's unique to your business goals. And we are going to teach you how to leverage your local market information to kind of set your own revenue management strategy, right? So we're going to learn 3 key demand drivers that you need to know about. The second thing that we're going to learn about is in dynamic pricing, your market changes every single day. You all know this. Bookings occur, new inventory sometimes comes online. Obviously, when something like COVID hits, your market changes dramatically. Weather can impact a particular sun and snow destinations. All sorts of things can play into what is known as truly a dynamic market or dynamic pricing, right? So we're going to teach you how to either A, leverage automation, or B, where do you go to kind of figure out how your market is changing? So we'll teach a few skills there. And the last thing, which is really important, is in the short-term rental space, the majority of our revenue is comprised of the bookings we take. And if we take the right bookings, we make more. And if we take the wrong bookings, we can earn dramatically less. So we do want to teach you at least one trick. This will have to be done on Wheelhouse, but you'll see why. But it's a way to actually get the best bookings in your market. So we'll try to get to that. And we're going to try to move fast. Ryan, how's the pacing so far? Too slow, too fast?
Just keep going, buddy. We've got plenty of time.
Woo!
There is no time limit. Just keep going.
Okay. So now we're going to dive into the real stuff. Section 1, being a demand detective. And let's start by acknowledging that adjusting prices around local demand patterns can be frustrating, confusing, or intimidating. I'm sure some folks on this call can agree with that. Which means that's why we see kind of what I would describe here. This is a graph showing roughly the same price every single night. But it means that some people in our space have chosen a revenue management strategy of simplicity, right? You have the same price for your listing every single night. When I started doing revenue management in the category 7 years ago, more than 60% of inventory had the same price every single night of the year, right? So if you had this strategy, you're certainly not alone. Another very common strategy is what I would call a seasonal strategy. So folks who have one price for the low season and one price for the high season. Still another strategy, we see people who have a single weekday price and a single weekend price, right? So we can think of this as, there are other variants of this, but we can think of this as a weekday, weekend strategy. And then lastly, another big strategy we see is a big event and holiday strategy. So same price throughout most of the year, but increased prices by some amount for large events. And that's actually not bad, right? Like the good news is that every single market does have 3 key demand factors, and they happen to be seasonality. We saw that one. Day of week. We saw that one. And events and holidays. These are essentially the 3 things that you need to know about your market to earn more revenue. And when combined, those demand drivers, they don't add up to a really boring chart. They add up to something that looks like this, right? And why does this matter? Kind of like the who cares question. Well, let's just say this was your current pricing strategy and the actual demand in your market looked like this. This roughly represents your revenue opportunity. Now, this isn't quite accurate because good revenue management will actually increase your occupancy as well. Some days when you would have earned 0, you will actually earn revenue. So this is obviously a little bit of a pictorial representation, but suffice to say, by matching your price with local demand, you can earn a lot more revenue. So the first skill we need to learn to be able to capture that revenue. I like to call demand detective. And it's understanding your market seasonality, day of week, and local events impact to earn more revenue, right? Now, the first free tool we're going to look at today, for a lot of your markets, the most accurate indicator of your seasonality curve is tied to temperature, right? And there's this really amazing site called weatherspark.com. Let's click in and watch this real quick. So this is WeatherSpark. It's a pretty interesting tool. There's a lot of data here. One thing you'll notice on the bottom though is a tourism score. So you can just go look at any market. It's got a whole bunch of them, but you can they give tourism scores. They give you a lot of data, and all this data, again, since people often travel to places they love when the weather lines up, really good service. It's cheap, it's free, and a lot of data here for you. Yeah, so literally going to weatherspark.com, you even saw the tourism score there, right? These folks are thinking about it. This is a free product. It's live. I think it might be worldwide. It's certainly in the all US markets. If someone wants to check that during this video, that I'd actually would appreciate knowing that. I realize I presented some of this material to a US audience, so I am remiss in not being able to answer whether WeatherSpark works internationally, but I believe it does. And again, it's a really amazing tool. It's free information that's going to correlate very tightly to large seasonal demand patterns in your market. And seasonality, like the way to think about seasonality is a big, slow moving curve that impacts your whole market, right? It's one of the most important curves to get right. Now on Wheelhouse, and every time you see this kind of a slide that looks like this, we're going to watch a Wheelhouse video or Wheelhouse information. We actually have free market reports as well. So if you wanted to go look at generalized kind of weather patterns, you could do so on WeatherSpark. And if you wanted to look at a free market report on Wheelhouse, this is now live for a bunch of markets. Let's take a look at this as well. There are a number of ways on Wheelhouse to figure out your market's seasonality curve and to make adjustments as needed. So first, where you can quickly see market occupancy and other things on your overview tab. A more helpful page is on trends. So here we're going to go look, and we're going to look at kind of the overall occupancy and change over time. Now you can filter by a whole bunch of settings here, but once you've figured out generally what your seasonality curve looks like, let's click into one of our properties. We're going to go to our settings page, and we're actually going to click on seasonality adjustments. Here you can see that Wheelhouse is already making adjustments to your monthly base price depending on seasonality for your market. But if you ever disagree with any of our recommendations or want to change anything, it's really easy. You can actually come in on each month, make any adjustments as you see fit. We're going to save those changes, and now we're on our way. Great. 59 seconds to go look through your market data and go make adjustments and control your seasonality. I think what you'll see kind of throughout this presentation, hopefully, is that you can leverage a lot of data and you can control and customize Wheelhouse however you want, hopefully really quickly. But that was just one of our local demand curves, right? That was seasonality. Now, how about day of week? So another good free tool to figure out your day of week settings is just Google Flights, right? You can look at Google hotel pricing now too. That's a pretty interesting curve as well. But let's just see how I'd recommend leveraging this free tool to kind of pick up and figure out your market's general day of week pattern. One place to look for day of week information for your market is actually airline flights. So here we're on Google's flight tracker, and we're going to go look, and we're going to look at a one-day trip, and then we're going to look ahead a few months just to get rid of kind of the near-term noise. So we're going to look at March of next year, and we'll see a regular pattern here, right? Here's Tuesday and Tuesday and Tuesday. So these couple weeks here really illustrate what some day of week impacts look like for flights. And you can see that Tuesday's a very quiet day. Wednesday picks up, Thursday picks up more. You can imagine people coming in for the long weekend. And then on Sunday, they fly home. So this looks like a normal day of week, a repeatable day of week pattern. And you can translate this into information about your short-term rental and when people are likely to arrive, which appears to be Thursday. So the first thing I notice when I see that chart is when flights peak on Thursday, I immediately know that this market has the stays are a little bit longer. So you are going to see a lot of 3-day weekends in this. Again, you might see something different for your market. Now, during COVID, a lot more transportation has obviously traveled to or changed to drive to destinations. So you might want to look at the hotel price search now. on Google, but again, free tool for you to be able to go look and see like, what is that day of week pattern that I might want to build into my pricing strategy? Well, a couple other ways to do it too. Let's check this out.
If we want to figure out our day of week demand curve for our market, again, we're going to be starting at our free market review page on the overview tab. We're going to scroll down and we're going to look for day of week, and we're going to look for occupancy changes over time or price factor changes over time. Once we have a sense of our market curve, and again, you can filter all this information by performance type, by bedrooms, etc. But once we figured out for our property what we want to do, we're going to go back to our settings page for a particular listing. We're going to click to weekends. And if we want to make, we can either take our Wheelhouse's recommendation of more conservative, recommended, or aggressive, or we can come in and fully customize our reaction. So in this case, let's say we want to take more risk on weekends and we want to increase our price recommendations by 20% on the weekends. All we need to do is customize it, push save, and again, we're on our way.
So another 1 minute to kind of leveraging some data. You can see you can come in and set different customizations and controls, or controls really kind of presets from us, or you can take customize it fully. And philosophically, the reason we don't have a universal revenue management engine or pricing engine is because everyone runs their business differently. I like to think operators who, if you have higher operating costs often from weekends, partly because you figured out that you have, it takes more time to clean your place after a long weekend, or more people maybe party in your town, you might want to dial up the price on weekends, right? You might want to take more risk than the Wheelhouse pricing recommendation engine would default recommend. So you do want to come in and customize with any revenue management software you're using. You're really going to want to think about your market data, but then you're also your operational goals to make adjustments around all these things. Lastly, local events. So local events is probably the hardest to get right. It's the most fluid. This is partly because, for holidays and big events, people often expect a really big increase in demand. So they'll raise prices a lot. Sometimes that demand does materialize. Sometimes it does not. That's part one that makes local events hard. Part two is you can have small events near you, like a wedding, that no other site will pick up, but your whole neighborhood will book out. Your whole area will book out, right? Everyone wants to be near the wedding venue, whatever it may be. So local events are definitively the hardest thing to get right. But for the largest events, honestly, in America, again, I apologize. I don't know for an international audience what the best equivalent would be. But ironically, in major markets in the US, Ticketmaster is an incredible place to see large events. Let's see why. So what I'm basically doing here is I'm entering a zip code on Ticketmaster search. It's now going to tell me every event near me. And remember, this company's goal is to basically let people know about all the big fun things going on near me. So whereas you can go to your local tourism bureau, that's a great place to go and ask for local events. You can obviously try to get kind of have high communications with wedding organizers and wedding planners, things like that, like Wheelhouse. So you can also just go for the biggest events that are going to impact whole markets. Places like Ticketmaster, other large ticketing sites, even large conference venues, obviously, they're going to have a list of their events. I think everyone knows the conference venue one, but I found a little bit of luck figuring out large events near me with Ticketmaster. Now, of course, there's an easier way to do this as well, straight in a tool.
Wheelhouse makes it easy to see and adjust around local events near any listing. In this case, we're going to start on our dashboard. We're going to click into an individual property like this. Now, we'll see our calendar, which includes prices, and we'll see these pink flags on any day as well. If we scroll to a day with a pink flag and click on that day, we can see the actual local event near us. In this case, is President's Day on February 15th. Now, we might want to set a custom rate for this weekend, even though Wheelhouse will already be adjusting around local demand. Let's do that by selecting a number of days. And then we can either set an automated rate, which will increase Wheelhouse's recommendation by a certain amount, let's say 20%, but still dynamically adjust prices. Or we can fully customize the rate. So in this case, we're going to lock in the price, and we'll say that we want both a weekday and a weekend price. Click save, and we're on our way.
Now we'll actually see some more demand charts coming up of how you predict local events. And two additions, both on our comp set and market report tool now. You actually can look 18 months in the future and see every single event listed out. You can see what the demand is for that day. You can see what people are charging for that day. Lots you can now do in the tool. So we made pretty significant advances in the last 2 months around this. This video was filmed, I guess, back in January now. Wow. Yeah, lots you can do around local events, and it is really important to get it right. Of course, you can also do, you can automate all this stuff, right? So when we were looking at some of those controls that you could set for seasonality or weekends, or even controlling individual days on your calendar, all of that when combined with automation is really quite powerful. And just for like a sneak peek of like, what the heck goes on behind one of these pricing engines out there, let's take a quick look at like the back-end data science of Wheelhouse real quick.
So we're going to show you some of the behind the scenes work that Wheelhouse does to make sure you're priced perfectly every single night. So I'm stepping to a real listing analysis. This is a real link listing in Wheelhouse. And what I'm looking at here is I'm just going to look at the predictive demand. So what you can see, Wheelhouse's predictive demand model runs every single day. And we basically look at pricing near your property. We look at hotel signal and your competitive set and other places near you. And we're making predictions based on that pricing signal about how your place should price. Now, we're going to show you some other demand charts in a minute here. But what we also can see is that our predictive demand model can actually isolate all the different factors related to your calendar, which means we can show you seasonality, temporality, we could show you just your local events. But all of this behind the scenes is the work we do to make sure that you're priced perfectly every single night and that you're not getting booked before you know an event near you is occurring.
Great. So this is like, partially the sum of this week is partly to talk about best practices and partly to talk about technology, but this is why people invest in automated revenue management solutions. There is a lot that goes on behind the scenes. We're going to see some more data science because you do want to be able to tear apart any revenue management practice in a particular fashion. So lastly, if you really want to dive in deeply to figure out, just read about the predictive model. All of our research is published. You'll see all the different blog posts we have, but the predictive demand model, you can go read about a predictive demand model at any point. We detail kind of the years of research that went into figuring out how do we translate local demand signals into pricing for each individual home. It's actually pretty fun. Okay, section one, that was section one. We're on to section two, rapid responder. So this is a little bit tied to the last thing we just covered of local events, but this is a really important skill. Remember, we had in the first section, we were trying to predict local demand, and we were trying to predict local demand by looking at seasonality, day of week, and local events, right? We're trying to find information to predict how our market was going to book. However, reacting to actual demand patterns once bookings start to emerge are one of the most important parts of revenue management, right? The farther out you go, the more likely your prediction will be inaccurate, right? And we'll see that in just a second here. So for section two, rapid responder, I'm going to start with a slightly controversial opinion, which is everyone prices local events incorrectly. Everyone. And that means, unfortunately, by extension, you are pricing local events wrong as well. And I've been working in this space a long time, and I guarantee you I'm pricing local events wrong too. It's really, really hard. Yeah, it's truly one of the hardest things we do. So just as an example, if we were to look back at San Francisco on January 1st, 2020, when you looked at how people were priced and when you looked at booking patterns, these spikes are all high price points or high booking patterns. It was Jan 1st. And we all, unfortunately, we know what happened, but even by March 15th, this is still before San Francisco had officially shut down for COVID. Demand had fallen off a cliff, right? So while there were still some high periods of demand in the far future, those would actually disappear in the next 14 days as well. So with COVID, we had the most extreme example of a massive impact in an urban environment to demand. However, and even if you zoom in a little bit here, you can see how quickly all those demand spikes disappeared and went negative, right? Cancellations were flowing in. And I'm sure many of us on this call experienced something similar initially when COVID was spreading. So Feb, March, April, et cetera. So the defense mechanism you need to have for this, but for other events, when snow patterns change, should you be in a ski destination or anything else, is a skill that we like to call rapid responder. And it's the ability to accurately assess the impact of events near you so you can adjust your strategy. Now, let's check this out as well.
Wheelhouse's market reports make it easy to see when bookings are occurring near you. In this case, we're going to look into the far future. We're going to look 1 year out, and we're going to look to see spikes in demand in the far future. In this case, we can see that these spikes indicate a big event, August 5th, 6th, and 7th. If we go back to one of our listings and click through to our calendar, we can actually skip ahead to those days in August, and let's take a look what's happening in our market. So in this case, when I click on Friday, I can review that one of the large festivals in town, Outside Lands, is occurring from August 6th until August 9th. Let's say that we wanted to take a little more risk on those days. Again, we could drag our calendar to select a number of days at one time, and we could increase prices in the fashion we've done so before, or again, customize the rate, creating a weekend and weekday price. Click save, and again, we're on our way.
Now, I am showing the market report a lot, and I apologize for that because it is a Wheelhouse product, but it is free. It is free. It's free in every single market we're in. So if you want to go learn about your market, everything I'm showing you today, you can go do for free. If you want to automate, we do charge for that service, but all of this stuff is free, and you can use that data for however you want to power your business anyway. Of course, you can automate that reactive stuff too. So a quick preview now of how the reactive model.
Right, we're back in the listing analysis section of Wheelhouse, and this time we're going to explore our reactive demand model. So our reactive demand model can basically detect when events or bookings near you are emerging and make adjustments to your prices. So in this case, we're just looking at predictive demand near a real listing. This listing is in Melbourne, Australia. And now we're going to toggle on the reactive model to see what our reactive model is seeing. So in this case, you can see that over the next 4 months or so, we're actually seeing a lot more bookings. That means that people in this market have lowered prices, but Wheelhouse is detecting a lot of bookings near you, meaning we would be recommending you raise your prices. This is kind of the power of automation. When we detect bookings near you, we can automatically raise your prices. Now, we're also seeing in the far future that Wheelhouse is seeing a signal of strong demand. In this case, next November, December, we can see that all the way in the future. Now, you also see periods where people are priced higher than our reactive model would recommend. In this case, we're actually seeing a really slow period relative to how the market thinks. So the reactive model is really good at just looking at your booking signal and making adjustments. Now, we run the reactive model every single night. We're always making adjustments. And if you want to break out the signals behind or the reasons behind price recommendations, we can show you that for the reactive model, just like we could for the predictive model as well. So a really powerful addition to your tool set. Again, this is our automated model. When you automate pricing with Wheelhouse, you're taking advantage of both the predictive and the reactive model. They combine really nicely together. We're going to talk more about that a little later in this presentation.
Great. So that's all to say, well, you can automate things, and you can even do deep dives into the data science behind it. We have the reactive model available as well too. When you're thinking about your own pricing strategy, what I'd really encourage you to do is find those tools that help you predict how your market is going to price. And you can do it. You can look at price signal near you from just how other properties near you are priced. We can talk more about that if we'd like. But then you need to also adjust, right? You either need to figure out a way to automate, or you need to put in the time every single week at least to be updating prices on what actually happens in your market. If you do that, you will win, right? Most people do not adjust prices super dynamically. They don't. So if you say, hey, we all thought the market was going to book in a particular way, but now we've learned because we've observed the market that things aren't booking, or they are booking faster than expected. That's your secret sauce, right? So great teams that don't use automation do put it into practice, usually once a week, to review their pricing and try to figure out what signals are taking place in their market. All right. How are we on time? Because I might want to skip. We got
20 minutes or so, but you know, as much as you want.
Okay, we got two more sections. Any questions so far? Are we too technical? Are we too high level?
Quick question, Andy, is where does this data come from? Are you guys, you've got some sort of API link with Airbnb, or you just monitor when calendars get booked? Where does it actually come from? That's always been a question I've had.
Yeah, so our data comes from multiple marketplaces. Airbnb is one of them. TripAdvisor is another one. We have direct data feed from TripAdvisor, for example. We have multiple channel managers. So channel managers help with distribution to all the marketplaces. So we can see bookings flowing across a lot of marketplaces. We're about to, when I mentioned earlier that we're going worldwide, we just signed a data partnership 2 weeks ago. The only way we're going worldwide is because we just signed a data partnership that gives us confidence we can accurately price in all those markets. So that one, that will be announced next week, that data partnership, but it's a really both broad and deep data set that's pretty unique. It's actually a lot of offline data about the short-term rental space. We have data from Expedia's affiliate network, so hotel data. We have 50,000 linked properties for whom we have perfect insight. We have a lot of data.
And so when, for instance, if I've got a property with Wheelhouse, which gets booked, you're then using that data, of course, to then inform everyone else who's on Wheelhouse. But
mostly your property. But yes.
Okay, because it's almost like I'm trying to work out how someone isn't the fool guy, basically, who they get booked quickly, then you suddenly go, oh, hang on, quickly put everything else up, for example, but you've got multiple different sources.
Yeah, we have a ton of different sources. It's a good question. So a couple of things. One, individuals, as you see, we can automate a lot, but we also put people fully in control of their pricing strategy at the end of the day, right? So you can come override anything. Two is most likely there is a fair price for your property every single day.
Yeah.
The hard thing about short-term rental pricing that's way different than the hotel space is every single one of your attributes matter, right? So for example, let's say you had a home in a market with like San Francisco, I'll just use my hometown. If you have a parking spot, that parking spot historically was worth more than it would be in obviously most markets, but it also changes by day of week, right? A corporate renter is probably going to be willing to pay you for a parking spot so they know they can arrive and get safely into their spot. Wi-Fi, when Wi-Fi wasn't at 99% of places, used to be the same thing. Right now, your pet policy is going to have a huge impact on your likelihood to book. And that's because so many people are taking longer extended stays now that your pet policy is something that we're seeing impact revenue because, you know, the cost of putting your animal in the vet for 2 weeks is significant, right? And those longer trips are emerging. So there's all these different things. Like there is a fair price, I would argue, for every single property, every single day. Your pool is worth more in America on July 4th than on January 4th. It's worth more in the summer. Your hot tub's worth more in the winter. So there's a fair price for your home. And we can help price you accurately. And we would argue the market more efficient, but I think it's a very fair question. So I would just say, look, we do actually take all insight around your home and we figure out how you sell. And this is a very good lead in, Alexander, for this next section of like one really critical piece of data that we look at, or that you could look at too, to figure out how fairly are you priced in your market. But there is a fair knock on dynamic pricing. The flip side could be like, okay, aren't you just raising prices or whatever? It's like, we think we're helping operators build better businesses.
Okay, cool. So, and you mentioned you got two products. You've done a previous pricing software beforehand?
Yeah, I found a Beyond Pricing as well, which was a dynamic pricing tool. That was a different company. Yeah.
So this is okay. So you've moved company. So this is kind of the latest of all and greatest of all of your works, basically. Is that right?
Yeah, we actually started investing in Wheelhouse 6.5 years ago. The difference between us and other pricing softwares is the depth of data, right? We've invested probably more in data science than anyone but Airbnb in the category. So we could talk a little bit about that. B, what you'll see now is, which I actually am not going to showcase today, is the breadth of products. I really wanted to teach revenue management today via some of the things we built, right? We obviously designed our tool to help people with revenue management, but we also have built comp sets and market reports. So it's a very broad featured revenue management platform now. And then there are a few other things that we don't need to necessarily get into till the end about how we differentiate ourselves from other services. But suffice to say, I think everything from the exporting of data and the controls that you have to the fact that we publish all our research, to the fact we design these protocols with outside external public companies, there's a lot we've done to kind of take revenue management from a black box to very transparent and accessible, hopefully.
Awesome. Thanks, Pat. Really appreciate it.
Yep. Love the interrupts. Okay, so we're going to talk to your question, Alexander. Another piece of data you can look at. This skill is called Pacing Pro, right? We're going to get 4 skills in 3 categories. This is the second skill in reacting rapidly. Okay. So this chart here is an example of a lead time chart. And by that, I mean what we're seeing on the y-axis here, you just saw this slide in, is we're seeing the percentage of all bookings that occurred on a particular day. And on the x-axis here, we're seeing days from stay date. So the way that I interpret this chart, this is a very normal chart, is that more bookings occur the closer we get to a stay date. Okay, so this is an example of a lead time chart. Now, in truth, every market's lead time chart is different, right? Your market is going to book differently than New York City, than San Francisco, et cetera. So this shape of chart, if your chart looks something like this, I would think of this as an early booking market. And by that, I mean, we see a lot of bookings occurring way before a stay date. And on the contrary, this would be a late booking market. In this case, we see a lot of bookings occurring as we get closer to a stay date. Now, I'm sure a lot of you are kind of jumping to the conclusion of, okay, this data might be useful for me. Let's say we figured out that your market's average lead time was 57 days. Okay, so the average home in your market books 57 dates before a stay date, or 57 days from now, for example. Well, if you always book way before your market, if your lead time's 100 days, you're probably underpriced. And the reason is, when almost all inventory was available in your market, people looked at all the homes and selected you, right? They chose you, partly maybe because you're great, but partly also probably because you're a good value, right? And the average person looks at about 30 properties before booking, right? So at least that was data we got from about 4 years ago. I don't know. I don't have an update on how many properties the current user is looking at, but that was still in the mobile era, right? So what we've been able to hypothesize is that individuals actually become pretty good at understanding what a good deal is in market, and they will snap up the good deals, right? So if you always book before the average home in your market, or before the average, say you had a 2-bedroom, the average 2-bedroom in your market, well, pretty safe to say you're underpriced. And similarly, if you book really late, you might be overpriced. And the only danger in that, you might be executing your strategy perfectly, but you also might be at risk should like demand fall off and like the snow doesn't materialize. For example, if you're in a ski destination, well, people might stop. They might be like, well, I'm not going to travel there, but the early bookings, they've already committed with friends and family to go to the place. They might just go, right? So these strategies can be risky, but you're in control of your strategy. So the definition of a pacing pro, though, is utilizing your lead time to make sure you sell each listing at the right time, at the right price. Okay, so let's see how we might do that with Wheelhouse.
There are a number of ways we can figure out our market's lead time. So on the market reports page, again, you can see there's kind of a blended lead time curve, but we want to do a little bit of a deeper analysis. So yes, you could come and look at your lead time in a very specific time series, but an easier way that I find is if we go look at our lead time chart here, and now we're looking at probability of when bookings will occur. We're going to go back to November, and we're going to see that. I'm
just going to pause real quickly. Now, you might remember on earlier slides, we had that shape, and we kind of amplified it by putting the pink behind it. Well, I can look at this shape right now, and I know that this is a late booking market, right? And I promise you, if you spent 30 seconds, 3 days in a row, whatever, on this chart, you would know your market's lead time cold, right? So it might look a little technical right now. This is a distribution curve. These are a little more advanced, but again, a few minutes on this type of interface, you're going to get it, and you're really going to know how to leverage the data for you.
Here it says 20 to 25 days out. 56% of all bookings are still yet to be made. So in San Francisco, for the average inventory type, 56% of all bookings occur in the last 25 days. Now, with that information, you can think about your property's lead time and when you often book. And if you're booking more quickly or more slowly than that, you can make adjustments in a couple of fashions. If overall you consistently book behind or ahead of the market, you can either adjust your base price to be more conservative or more aggressive or fully customized. You can set this to whatever you would like. Or if you're just pacing ahead or behind in a few months, you can again adjust your seasonality settings. So this is another way you can control how Wheelhouse's pricing engine will respond to your market. Of course, if you're automated, we'll be doing all this for you, but you always have final control to set your own settings and make your own adjustments, depending on what you're trying to achieve.
Great. So again, with pacing, you're basically trying to figure out when are customers buying properties near me? What are they buying? What are they buying first, et cetera? So this is what we just showed you is kind of the high level version of pacing. There's a whole lot more we can help with within the Wheelhouse product on pacing. Honestly, I haven't found a great external tool that's free Other than this market report here that allows you to see pacing in this fashion, it's partly because our inventory is so specific, right? Like you could look at a hotel pacing chart, you could potentially find some information out there, but it is a little hard to do this without specialized software. Yes, you can automate. And the reason you might want to automate is, yes, every single market has its own lead time curve. It turns out every single neighborhood in every single market has its own lead time curve. It turns out every single inventory type has its own lead time curve, meaning 1 bedrooms book differently than 2 bedrooms, book differently than 4 bedrooms, book differently than 7 bedrooms, right? If you have a 6-bedroom place, you do not want to be selling to a guest who's booking 3 to 5 days out. Chris, from iPrac, if you're still here, you can probably share more why. But suffice to say, someone who's planning to rent your home, a 6-bedroom home in the last few days, is probably not doing very good planning, and it might be a party waiting to happen. So yes, every single inventory type has its own lead time curve. And yes, every single day in your market has its own lead time curve, right? Holidays are going to book out way faster. People are going to plan around those days. Mondays are going to book out way faster if you're a high corporate travel market, right? So every single day has its own lead time curve, which means you might remember from the video, this is just a snapshot from the video, but this is not an exaggeration. When you look at lead time on a daily basis, so this is now every single day looking forward for a year, all these spikes illustrate how lead time changes, right? And the lower the spike, the closer people book to the stay day, and the higher the spike, the farther out they book. So every single day truly is different, which is why automating this can be valuable, right? This is why people choose to automate something like this, is because it's pretty complicated. So
another reason
we're going to see a little bit more why and how how revenue management machines help folks like you.
To consider automating with Wheelhouse is that we can help you pace your property perfectly. Now, pacing is already built into the Wheelhouse model. We've seen some ways that we can control our pacing should we want to, but we're now back in the data science section. We've seen the predictive demand. We've seen the reactive demand models and how those work. And now we want to talk about blending. So what blending does is it leverages the best of the reactive model and the best of the predictive model to basically say, well, how is your listing and how is your market booking? And how is your listing and how's your market priced? So the blended model is actually the unified output of those two demand models. And what we can see is that our blended model, which is the final output you would see for any price on any given day, it's the blended model. What you can see is we're basically pacing off the whole market. So when your market bookings spike, we increase your prices. And this weighted curve here tells us how much of your prices on any given day are weighted to the reactive versus the predictive model. You can see in the far future, before bookings emerge, before there's any pacing signal for your market, the reactive model has no weighting. That means the predictive model controls all of our pricing. But as a stay date approaches, so now we're approaching January with these stay dates, you can see that the reactive model now makes up almost 100% of your recommendations. That means that this blended model is really looking at your market and seeing how your listing is pacing against that market and figuring out how to price you on any given night. And that is the benefit that you get to take advantage of should you choose to automate with Wheelhouse.
Great. So the reactive model and the blending model are really two of the coolest aspects that our data science team has built, right? It's really like, how do you take a massive amount of data if you're in a market with 5,000 listings? Really hard to do. So again, this section of the website isn't beautiful. This is just the data science backend piece. It will be visible to you, to any customer, in about 2 weeks. So we're bringing all of this that was currently on the back end just for our data science team to test for years. And we're putting it all in the front end so you can control it. You can actually export all the data. You can audit all the data, meaning you can go back to any date and time and ask, what did Wheelhouse recommend? So kind of auditability is coming to revenue management as well. If you want to read more about this, we published the research here too, blending model. Okay, most fun section, capturing the best bookings. We're going to cruise. Decent bet is that 99% of your revenue comes from bookings, right? In the short-term rental space, ancillary revenue makes up a de minimis part of total revenue. In the hotel space, the best hotels actually do 50% of revenue from ancillary services. That's usually a boutique hotel stitched to an incredible restaurant. That's when you're going to get that level of kind of revenue split. But a good hotel in the US will do 15% of revenue from ancillary. In the short-term rental space, I think ancillary is coming. I think we're 2 years out from ancillary being 10% of your revenue stream. But right now, 99% of your revenue is likely from bookings, which is why it's so damn important to get this right. We'll say it again. It is extremely important to capture the best bookings. And you all know that not all bookings are created equal, right? You could get 2 $800 bookings, but if you got one on a different, depending on the channel, if it was a direct booking, that's going to give you more profit. Could be the same amount of revenue, but more profit at the end of the day. You're not going to be paying channel fees. However, distribution is an incredibly important thing that I'm sure you either talked about or will talk about. So you do want to sell on a lot of channels, no doubt. You want to amplify your direct booking, but you do want to sell on a lot of channels. It gives you the most chance to capture the most customers. The second thing that reduces revenue often from bookings is cancellations. So you're going to want to be thoughtful about your cancellation rate. And we have seen cancellation by channel vary dramatically, right? So on some channels, you can maybe guess who, cancellation rates usually less than 1%. On other channels where they've sometimes encouraged people to book 2 places, you'll see cancellation rates above 10%, right? So if you get a cancellation a few days before a stay, depending on your cancellation policy, you can lose a lot of revenue. So I would highly recommend you do not have a universal cancellation policy. The thing that we have seen maximize revenue is to have a cancellation policy tied to each channel. Meaning if you have a channel where you don't ever really get cancellations, set the most flexible cancellation policy out there. You'll get the most money from your property. If you have another channel where you are getting a lot of cancellations, set the most strict cancellation policy. That is the revenue maximizing strategy, and we've A/B tested the heck out of it. So I feel very confident sharing that with you. Now, the biggest thing that you can control though is bad bookings, right? And not accepting a bad booking, and really setting up your calendar for success. Should you have an automated calendar, setting up your calendar with smart minimum length stay policies so that you only capture the best bookings, right? Because we all know if this was a big event, this week represented a big event, and you got a booking for Thursday and Friday, even if you made quite a bit of money, you just lost the ability to price these days as effectively as possible. These days are now harder to sell, right? And again, you might get lucky, but in general, if you split up large events, you will lose money. So the last skill we're going to cover today, I call Calendar Guardian. And this is leveraging length of stay and lead time data. We already looked at lead time data in our market in order to create minimum stay settings that help you avoid bad bookings and capture the best bookings, okay? So this is the thing I said you really have to do probably in conjunction with a tool like Wheelhouse. So let's see how we would do this. And I do think, given how much, I said at the beginning, revenue management varies so much by market, so much by user, so much by listing. It's hard to give general rules. However, during COVID, the biggest changes in most markets have been lead time and length of stay have changed dramatically. So whatever strategy you came in to COVID with, throw it out the window, right? And I'm going to show you how to throw it out the window in the right way. Let's look at our market report again, and we'll learn a little bit more.
To prevent breaks, one of the best tools you can use is minimum stays. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to click over to our historical tab, and we're going to go down to the distribution curve section. We're going to look at our length of stay in our market. We're going to go to last month, and we're going to see that right now in our market, the average length of stay, these bars show the average length of stay. So in this case, 9% of all stays were 4 or 5 nights. But you can see that 54.3% of all the cumulative stays were less than 5 nights. That means that about 46% of all stays were more than 5 nights. Now, we can take that information for your market and we can go look at that applied to a listing. So here, in this case, we're going to go to our strategy section, and we're going to go to our min stays, and we're going to set a global minimum stay of 5 nights. We're going to toggle this. This gap nights functionality means if a 4-night block of days emerges, Wheelhouse will automatically adjust that min stay. Now, we could set whatever controls we want on a single day as well, but then we're going to we're going to add an adjustment here. So we're going to say 30 days out, our min stay is going to drop to 3 nights. And then let's say 15 days out, we're going to drop it to a 2-night min stay. Whatever you want, you're fully in control. And this button down here actually allows us to go set minimum stays for a particular date range. So what we can do is we can take our average length of stay in market. We can set a global minimum that's close to that if we want. And then we can make adjustments as stay dates approach. And this is how you avoid calendar breaks.
So what I would have done, should I have been trying to protect that event, I would have gone and set a 7-day minimum stay for that week-long event in my market. I would keep a really close eye on it. I would make sure to have customization and controls in place. So as stay dates approach, I drop my minimum stay. But this is, since most people operationally, long stays are usually more profitable for folks, usually easier to handle operationally. Again, it depends on your business. You can sometimes compress and get more revenue out of shorter bookings. That's true. But like overall profitability wise, most people benefit from longer average lengths of stays in market. So if you did want to control it, and you do in the far future want to keep that length of stay high, you're not going to be bookable on the marketplaces before the real peak demand window occurs, and you're not going to break up events. So can be a really helpful tool, all automated to help you maximize revenue. Okay. The last flag, since some of you have large portfolios, I did just want to flag that everything we've seen today from a pricing control perspective can be done on a portfolio level on Wheelhouse. So let's say you wanted to save more time, make more money. You don't need to adjust one property at a time. You can adjust up to 500 at a time. All right. We'll show 500 listings per page in the dashboard. So maybe if you had 1,000 properties, you have to make 2 changes, but pretty easy, pretty fast. You can control your whole portfolio with ease. Okay. And yes, you can automate this. We're going to skip this. Suffice to say,
the best way.
Yeah. Suffice to say, there's more automation. We made it. Recap and wrap, right? Today we learned 3 new disciplines. Mastering your local market. There are 3 local demand curves near you. Seasonality, day of week, local events. There are free ways to learn all that data. If you want more free ways, reach out to me. I'm Andrew at usewheelhouse.com. I'll help you out. At least I'll share the videos with you. If you learn those, you truly will earn a lot more. You'll be way ahead of the field. Responding rapidly, there are actually 2 skills we covered there. One is basically going, it is just the rapid response part, which is going and looking at how your market is booking, seeing when spikes are occurring in occupancy, and leveraging that data to make adjustments on a daily basis. The second thing we looked at was how your property is pacing. Are you always selling ahead or behind of your market? And leveraging that information to make pricing adjustments. Now, we only had a few minutes. Pacing is a skill people go to university for, right? It's all this stuff is university level revenue management. It's hard, but these are hopefully aimed to be simple tricks to help you do well. And the third part, capturing the best bookings, really is about taking control of your calendar, controlling your minimum length of stay, in particular, adjusting it as stay dates approach to earn more revenue. So these are the 4 skills: demand detective, rapid responder, pacing pro, and calendar guardian. And you all have this video should you want to refer back to it. And there's all these blog posts you can go refer to as well. So that's really all. If you do want to sign up for Wheelhouse, you get a discount for hanging out with Ryan. I usually don't talk quite as much. I love more engaging things. So I do have time for questions. If anyone wants to ask me anything, if I can be helpful. If you do have follow-up questions, our team's always available. hello@usewheelhouse.com. And with that, thank you so much for patiently listening to a whole lot about revenue management. And hopefully you learned something fun, new, or helpful.